who was one of the biggest off-field stories in years. In 2005, Manchester United, the most successful English football club in the Premier League era, were being sold to American billionaire owners. Even in the age where billionaires had begun to invest in English football, with little thought of immediate profit, with everyone playing catch-up to Roman Abramovich and Chelsea, Malcolm Glazer was still an unknown quantity, in the UK at least. Glazer was the patriarch of a business empire that had made hundreds of millions of dollars in a vast array of businesses that initially wouldn't seem to be particularly lucrative. He had grown up in a poor Lithuanian Jewish family in New York. From the age of 15, after the premature death of his father, he would sell watches door to door before building up a successful watchmaking business and then moving into real estate. His first allied corporation owns millions of square feet of mall space across America. There's a range of other businesses from media to old people's homes to fish processing. Glazer was openly spendthrift. According to a 2005 profile in The Guardian, journalist Alan St. John met with Glazer to discuss a potential biography. Glazer pointed at St. John's trousers. "Those pants are Hugo Boss pants. They cost $200. My pants? They came from JCPenney, 1995 on sale. And you know something? I like my pants more than he likes his pants. You know why? Because I remember the day when I didn't have $20 to spend on pants." Still, that attitude translated only partially into his business dealings. Famously, he was accused of being a slumlord after it emerged that his holding company charged residents of one trailer park $5 per month for a pet and $3 for any extra resident after the first two. In other words, children. But the margins on extracting pet fees in American trailer parks were small beer compared to the world of sports franchise ownership, which elevated Glazer into the public's consciousness and turned him into a billionaire. Despite knowing nothing about American football, Glazer bought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1995 for $192 million, which was then a record price for an NFL franchise, and installed 3 of his sons, Joel, Brian and Edward, to run it. Few thought the Glazers had got a good deal, as the Bucs had been on a downward spiral. But soon the family came across a bright idea. The Bucs needed a new stadium to make the team financially viable, but didn't want to pay the huge costs themselves. So they made an offer to the city's administration. The Glazers would pay for half, but the public purse would have to cough up for the rest. Otherwise, they'd move the Bucs somewhere else. After a series of compromises were rejected, one city politico came up with a novel idea: the community investment tax. This would be a 30-year, half-cent sales tax that would be used to pay for public infrastructure projects as well as education and law enforcement. It was projected to raise $2.7 billion over 3 decades, with the construction costs of the new stadium piggybacking on whatever was raised. 6% would go towards building the Bucs Stadium. Residents, local activists and politicians were outraged that the country's poorest residents would effectively be paying for a franchise owner's stadium. But when put to the vote, it passed 53% to 47%, and in 1998 the Raymond James Stadium was completed. Later, a 103-foot, 43-ton pirate ship, which had a cannon that fires every time a point is scored, was added. In the end, the Glazers put virtually none of their own money in. Today, according to Forbes, the Bucs are worth $981 million, 5 times what Glazer paid for it. The success of the Bucs made Manchester United an easy idea to sell. Both Joel and Avram were keen soccer fans and believed that United had a huge international reputation unlike any sports club or franchise in the world, and that they could be picked up relatively cheaply. Rupert Murdoch had had the same epiphany and had already attempted to buy the club for £623.4 million. But the deal was not approved by the Labour government's Monopoly and Mergers Commission due to a potential conflict of interest with Murdoch's football broadcasting business. As far back as 2003, Glazer had been quietly accumulating shares in Manchester United at the behest of his sons, but it was an argument over a horse that opened the door for a full takeover. John Magnier and JP McManus owned close to 29% of Manchester United shares and had invested in a successful racehorse called the Rock of Gibraltar, with then-coach Sir Alex Ferguson. When Ferguson fell out with the other owners over stud rights, it poisoned relations in the boardroom. McManus and Magnier wanted out, and the Glazer family were there to pick up the pieces. Despite supporter shareholder activism and the famous green and gold supporter protests, the Glazers Red Football Limited were able to take control of the club and take it private, but they didn't use their own money to buy the club. They used a financial instrument called an LBO, or a leveraged buyout, something they had used many times during the 80s and 90s. Essentially, it involves borrowing money against a future asset to buy that asset. After 75 years of being debt-free, Manchester United were suddenly hundreds of millions of pounds in the red. At one point, the Glazers' interest payments hit £60 million per year, but the Glazers could still pay the huge interest payments because of the club's continued success on the pitch, the booming TV rights deals, as well as rapid exploitation of the club's commercial potential. After the takeover and until his retirement, Ferguson's Manchester United won 5 more Premier League titles, alongside 3 League Cups, the FIFA Club World Cup and a second Champions League trophy. In 2016, the club announced that it had become the first English club to earn more than £500 million in revenue in a single financial year, with a record profit of £68 million. They have doubled the revenue over the course of their tenure, massively expanding commercial contracts to cover an official wine partner, official tyre partner, and of course, an official paint partner. In 2014, Malcolm Glazer died after being ill for a long time following a stroke. Joel and Avram are co-chairmen, and his 4 other children are directors. So how do you assess the Glazers' legacy? On the one hand, it could be argued that the takeover and subsequent rise in value of the club, plus its commercial operation, has made it a huge financial success. It is now, according to Forbes, the most valuable soccer team in the world, worth an estimated $3.689 billion, more even than Real Madrid. With Jose Mourinho at the helm, the team is back challenging for the title and has returned to the Champions League. But at what cost? On the 10th year anniversary of the purchase, the Manchester United Supporters Trust released a statement laying out just how much money had been taken out of the club. Not investing a single penny might be considered an ownership crime by fans at most clubs, but far worse than that, they've actually extracted colossal sums from Manchester United, they wrote in 2015. When all interest and charges on their leveraged buyout is added up, plus money they've paid themselves, plus related debt still on the club, they've taken more than £1 billion, and it's still rising. No owner in the history of football in any country ever has taken so much money from a club.